Hello and good afternoon. I would like to welcome you today to our FDM T40 Tip and Acceleration Kit webinar. My name is Edith Gutmann. I'm working as EMEA training specialist within the sales organization, and I will be the host of this webinar. Our presenter today is Mr. David Dahl, application engineer in the Stratasys headquarters. But before I'm handing over to him, I would like to give you some general information. As you might have noticed already, you are all in listen-only mode at the moment. So in case that you have any questions during the webinar, you can type your question in with there is a question function in GoToWebinar so that you do not forget it. And at the end of the webinar, which will take about 20 to 30 minutes, we will have enough time to read the questions aloud and David can answer them. At that time, you can also use then the raise hand function. If you want to clarify your question personally, I will unmute you when I see that the hand is raised. Also another information, this webinar is being recorded and we will publish it later on our partner training portal, Train Me on 3D. So in case that you have any colleagues who were not able to attend today, please feel free to tell them about the recorded version on Train Me on 3D. And now I wish you an interesting webinar and I will pass on to our speaker. Welcome, David.
Thank you everyone. Thanks for attending. So as Edith mentioned, my name is David Dahl. I'm an applications engineer at Stratasys corporate office based in Eden Prairie, Minnesota, so in the United States. I've been with Stratasys for about 2 years now, and I've spent a lot of time working on composite tooling as well as this new acceleration kit. And so for the next 20 to 30 minutes, I'm going to dive into some system upgrades for your Fortis 900 system that will increase the throughput, and this is done through a larger tip diameter and a larger capacity material canister, which we're calling the Fortis 900 acceleration kit. So the larger tip is called the T40A or the T40, and the material canister is going to be called the Extend 500 box. There are a few special considerations you're going to need to take into account when using both upgrades, and then we have a few different packages for purchasing in which you can buy various quantities of tips and material in what we're calling our acceleration kit package, and then we'll wrap it up with a few success stories of showing how customers in the field are using these upgrades to increase their throughput and success. So the T40 tip is a 40 thousandths diameter, 20 thousandths high slice height. It looks just like your normal tip that you would install in your printer right now. And to give you a comparison of this, the T20 tip has a 13 thousandths slice height. So it's a much larger bead profile. It's actually the largest that's currently available. It installs in your printer the same way as if you install the other ones on the head, so there's no hardware upgrade to this. You'll only need to upgrade your Insight software. And to give you an idea of why a larger bead diameter is important is compared to the T20 tip, you're able to print parts 2 to 3 times faster depending on geometry. Right now it's currently available in ASA and Altum 1010. Now the reason we chose these two materials is that we wanted to cover a broad range of applications. So ASA is one of our lower price materials. It's really great for prototyping, jigs, fixtures, you know, ancillary tools, things of that nature. And then Altum 1010 is a premium engineering grade material, so it has high performance capability. It's really great for the aerospace industry and composite tooling. So with these two materials that you're allowed to print with T40, you can cover a very large range of applications. To give you an idea of the print speed, here's an example where we actually printed the lid of the Fortis 450 using a T20 tip and a T40 tip. So as you can see, the T20 tip took about 160 hours, and compare that to the T40 tip, which took 63 hours. So you're able to print the top of the Fortis 450 almost 60% faster when you're using this new larger tip diameter. There are some very extreme advantages you get with the new tip size. The biggest one is that you can print large parts fast. So this is especially great for parts that are bigger than the build envelope of the Fortis 900. So if you have something, let's say 9 foot long, like that image on the lower right, the composite lab tool, which I actually have an example on later on, that's a 9 foot long composite tool used for the aircraft industry. So we had to print multiple sections together. And this is really great because you're able to seriously cut down your print time, which cutting down your print time means you're able to cut down the overall cost of the part. There are a few limitations due to the bigger or the larger bead profile. So with all FDM processes, you're going to have a little bit more incidence of stair stepping, and I have a few examples of how to fix that later on. And it's not really well suited for very fine or intricate features. So if you want to include recessed text into your part, it may not come out as nice as you would anticipate, just because the beads are much, much larger. So it's typically great for really large, big parts. Setting up the T40 in Insight is just the same as you would normally use for any other tip. So you're just going to open up your configure modeler, and you're going to go to slice height, and you're going to select 0.0200, which is 20 thousandths of a slice height. And you can verify that by seeing where it says the model tip will be T40 and the support tip will be T20. And I should mention that this is run on Insight 10.8. So if you don't have Insight 10.8, you'll need to download the upgrade so that you can accurately run this new tip. Switching gears a little bit, I want to talk about the Extend 500 canister. So unlike the round metal canisters that you're used to with 92 cubic inches of material, the Extend 500 canister is actually a cardboard box that contains 500 cubic inches of material inside of it. And you can see the image on the right side of the screen. It sits right next to the printer, and it connects to the existing drive blocks via a magnet. So you'll need to upgrade to the Fortis Plus package system for your printer if you don't already have it. And the reason is that there's a new chip configuration, and you'll need to upgrade the drive blocks. Once you have the Fortis Plus upgrade, you can absolutely run the Extend 500 canister no problem. And in one of the packages that we'll discuss later on, you can actually include the upgrade from Classic to Plus if you don't have it already. These material canisters come in two materials right now, ASA and polycarbonate. So if you're printing a large part with the T40 tip for ASA and you pair it with an Extend 500 canister for ASA, it's a really, really great avenue for printing large parts quickly. And now, the biggest value you're going to get with these larger capacity canisters is that you can print large parts without constantly changing the canisters over at odd hours. So for any of you that have had to print a large part over the weekend, you know the pain of coming in at 5 a.m. to make sure the printer has enough material to keep running so you don't get a pause in your print. And so to give you a comparison on this, a standard canister, or standard 92 cubic inch canister and a fully loaded 900 will run for about 14 hours. But if you have two Extend 500 canisters hooked up to the system, you can run 76 hours without reloading material. So it's a significant advantage here, and we like to say that it's lights out manufacturing. So it's really great for weekend builds where you can just print it and leave it alone. Now, as I mentioned, you can print lights out, and that eliminates the biggest advantage here is that you can print lights out. So it allows you to print large parts much faster. You don't have to worry about coming in on weekends to change out the material for the empty canisters. And you're able to eliminate the visible lines where the material canisters switch over. And I have a slide on that coming up. But basically, if you run material in your printer and then it switches from an empty canister to a full canister, you're going to see a little bit of a line, and we call this a changeover. And so by having a continuous filament for 500 cubic inches, you're able to minimize that phenomenon. The limitations right now are that it's only available for the Fortis 900 and ASA and polycarbonate, and the cardboard box sits outside of the printer. Even though it has a small footprint, if you're really tight for space, this may be an issue, although we haven't seen anything like that. Now I'm going to jump into some special considerations you'll need to take into account when using the T40 tip that may be unfamiliar to those of you who are used to using a smaller diameter tip. And I have slides for each one of these, so I'm going to go through them one by one. But some of the common phenomena you'll see are stair stepping will be a little bit larger. Sometimes when you print small features, they tend to have a little bit of melting as you get towards the top on that upper right screen. And it can be difficult to print smaller fine features as you see in that very cool looking chair on the lower right side of the screen. But we have solutions for all of these, so I'll walk you through them one by one as kind of a troubleshooting guide. So the first one is going to be stair stepping, and with all FDM parts, this is something that is just the nature of the process. And since you have a larger slice height, you're going to see more incidents of stair stepping, especially for areas of severe curvature. So if you imagine printing a hemispherical shape, you're going to see this a lot more than if you print a flat plate. Now, it cannot be eliminated, but it can be minimized, and so we typically try to orient our parts in a way to minimize this on the critical surfaces. So if you see the images on the lower right side of the screen, you have a horizontal and a vertical orientation. The horizontal would print poorly because there would be a lot of stair stepping, and you would also use a lot of support material. But the image on the right, the vertical one, you would have a lot less stair stepping because of the way the printer extrudes the material in the Z orientation. So this is typically what we do, and then if you still have a surface roughness that needs to be worked on, you can absolutely sand it or post-process it additionally. Occasionally, when you're printing parts with thin features, they may start to melt at the top, as you can see in that image in the upper right. And this phenomena doesn't happen a lot, but what's going on is the minimum layer time is too short. And so what's going on is the bead of material is deposited, and then it doesn't have enough time to solidify before the next bead is applied on top of it because the tool path is so short. So the way you want to get around this is you're going to want to make a sacrificial tower, or a purge tower is what we call it. And this is just a simple geometry like that tube you see on the bottom right. And all you're trying to do is stall the printer so that there's enough adequate time to cool the layers on your part. So it'll print the part, and then it'll go over and it'll print that sacrificial tower for a couple of seconds or however you design it. And then by that point, your part is cool enough so that you can put on the next layer. It doesn't have to be anything complicated. The goal here is to just increase the time so the layer can adequately cool. So there's a little bit of discretion in how you design it, but it can be a cylinder of 3 to 5 inches, the height of the part, and if you're not seeing good results, you just make your sacrificial tower a little bit more complicated so the tool path is longer, so you could say put 3 to 5 contours and maybe a sparse double dense fill pattern on the inside. But again, this is something we don't see a lot, but occasionally you may come across it. Sometimes the surface quality may not be ideal with the larger tip because you're putting more material down, so the bead is larger, and it tends to, well, I shouldn't say it tends to, but occasionally you may see a tool surface or a part surface that looks like the two images on the upper right. Now in most cases, this is due to a poorly aligned seam, and this is something like you can address in Insight. So if you highlight your entire part and you go to Align Seam and move it to a corner, you can align it as you see on the upper right side of the screen so that your part has a nice smooth surface and that all of the tool paths start and stop where the seam is located. Other features such as thin columns or small features like on the bottom can also be a little bit problematic with T40, and the reason again is that it's just the perfect storm of minimum layer time, small features, and you have a large bead profile. So as you can see on that image right there, the two columns don't print as well as the upper part of it. And this is an area where you'll just need to either redesign the feature to make it a little bit thicker, or you'll need to put a purge tower in there to make sure that you have enough minimum layer time. But it's, like I said, it's something that we don't see a whole lot, but it's just something to be mindful of, because as you produce larger parts with bigger bead profiles, these are things that you need to be aware of. And finally, and I touched on this briefly with the Extend 500 canister, but there's a phenomenon when one canister empties and another one starts, and it's called the material changeover line, and you'll get a visible seam. It's more pronounced with Ultem since it's a higher temperature material, and just like with FDM and stair stepping, this is a phenomenon that can't be eliminated completely, but it can be minimized. So one way to do that is to constantly make sure you're refilling your printer with full canisters of material, or if you're printing with ASA, extend 500 canisters. That's a great approach to really minimize the material changeover lines. So for example, if I have a part that is less than 500 cubic inches in volume, I won't have a single material changeover line. And even if I have a part that's 1,000 cubic inches, I'd only have one if I use the Extend 500 canisters. So not only the benefit here is that you can leave your part, or you can leave your print alone and you don't have to worry about coming in at odd hours to change it over, but you will have a better surface finish because of those changeover lines. And there's nothing structurally wrong about these changeover lines, it's just a visible phenomena that we sometimes see when we're printing our parts. So now that I've given you the descriptions of what the new tip and the new material canister look like and how they perform, and some areas that you need to be mindful of, the special considerations, I want to touch on the acceleration kit itself. Now, the original plan was to sell the tip and material as a kit, but feedback from our customers in the field told us that we should sell them individually, but we still decided to offer them the package, or various packages, to make it easier for purchasing. So you can buy the tip and the canister a la carte, but if you want to buy in bulk, you can absolutely do that too. And we're calling it the Fortis 900 acceleration kit. So it's a combination of material and canisters for ASA and Ultem, and then the new T40 tip. So the first option is if you don't have the upgrade on your printer for ASA or Ultem 1010. So this is how you get the upgrade. And so with the ASA option, you'll get 6 canisters of model material for ASA. You'll get 6 canisters of Ultem if you get that option. You'll get some build sheets, and then you'll get various tips ranging from T12 all the way to T40A. Now, if you're buying a brand new Fortis 900, you'll get an additional discounted price. The second option is if you already have the upgrades to your printers and you're running ASA or Ultem, but you just need more material. And so there's 2 separate packages called the Fast Package A and the Fast Package B. So with A, you'll get about 3 to 4 days of continuous build time for ASA or Ultem 1010, and then with B, you'll get 7 to 10 days. So obviously with ASA, since it comes with since you can get ASA and the Extend 500 canisters, you'll get 2 of those, plus the T40 tips. And then also here, if you don't have the Fortis Plus upgrade, we will include that in the package upgrades as well. So this is a way to really reduce costs or save money because you don't need to go and pay for paying for the upgrade from Classic to Fortis Plus to run the Extend 500 canisters. Now, since Ultem 1010 is not supported with the Extend 500 canister box yet, you'll just get several more canisters of material. So you'll still get the T40 tip sets, but you'll get 10 canisters or 25 canisters depending on which package you get. And the goal here is to provide with a 7 to 10% discount by buying in bulk. So I want to wrap it up with 2 customer stories we have, or two customer stories showing the immense power of these new tips and material canister packages and how it's disrupting industry leaders with their current processes. So the first one is with a company called Aurora Flight Sciences. They're based out of Manassas, Virginia, which is just outside of Washington, D.C. And they came to us a few months ago with this project to print a composite tool for the belly pod of an aircraft, as you can see on the images on the right. So as I mentioned earlier in the presentation, this was a 9-foot long composite tool, And since it wouldn't fit in the volume of the printer, we had to segment it into 7 unique sections. And each section alone was 550 cubic inches. So what we did was we took 7 printers that we had on hand, 7 Fortis 900s, and we connected one Extend 500 box to each printer, and then we had an additional canister of material. So the parts were able to print in parallel, and we didn't have to worry about changing over materials at all, so we just let them run for 3 to 5 days on average. And we used 7 Extend 500 canisters. Now, to put that in comparison, if we didn't have the Extend 500 canisters, we would have had to use 40 regular canisters, and we would have had to come in at very odd hours to make sure everything was printing. But since we had these larger capacity canisters, we could just leave them alone. So the overall result was that we were able to reduce build time by over 50%, and we were able to produce the entire tool in less than 2 weeks. Now, they told us that if they would have done that the more traditional way by sending it to a tooling company, it would have taken several weeks or months and cost several tens of thousands of dollars. But again, we were able to produce this in less than 2 weeks, so it just shows the power of not only FDM and additive manufacturing in general, but now that we're depositing material much, much faster, we could cut our lead time down even further. The project was extremely successful, and we were able to get several parts off of that tool there, and you can see that it was painted and it had its first flight on that aircraft. And for those of you that are interested in even more information, it was featured in the June 2015 Composites World magazine, which is the industry-leading publication for composites and tooling, and they did a whole story about this project and how we partnered with Aurora Flight Sciences, and it was just a really, really great overall project to work on. The next one is Dassault Falcon Jet, which is out of Europe, but we were working with their Little Rock facility, and they want to start printing some of their composite tools. So as you can see, we redesigned their existing tools and printed them out of FDM. So again, this is where we use the T40 tip and the Extend 500 box to cut down on cost and lead time. So we have the traditional layup tool, which is used to make a carbon fiber or composite part, and due to the temperature requirements, we printed it out of Ultim 1010. So you can see that once we redesigned it, we were able to cut the lead time, we were able to print it 726 cubic inches of material with the T40 tip would take 73 hours. Now, if you compare that to a T20 tip, which would be the next largest tip size, it would take well over 110 hours. So you can see the advantages here. And then for the machine fixtures, since the temperature requirements were a lot lower, we printed it out of ASA. So we paired it with a T40 tip and then the Extend 500 canisters. So we were able to print this machine fixture in 45 hours versus well over 85 hours if we did the T20 tip. So some serious lead time reduction using the larger bead profile. And to finally drive home, and this is the last slide before we open up for questions and consideration or questions and comments, is to really drive home the fact that you can get some serious cost and lead time disruption with this. Is these are 2 more tools that we redesigned. So you can see the small tool and the large tool on the left. Those are the existing tool designs. They're heavy. They take a long lead time to create. You can even see the lift points for the forklift to move this around. And then you can see what we call, we did a process we call DFAM, or Design for Additive Manufacturing. So essentially, we removed all of the unnecessary material for these composite tools. So we're able to reduce lead time, cost, and weight. So to put that in perspective, the small tool, we were able to cut the cost down from $40,000 to $60,000 to $2,500 if you own a Fortis 900. And we were able to print it in 40 hours, so less than 2 days compared to a 10 to 14 week lead time through the current processes. And on top of it, these tools are light, so we printed the tool and it weighs 15 pounds, so you no longer need a forklift. It's a lot safer in the shop. You don't have to worry about dropping it on someone's foot or falling off a shelf. So there's some serious benefits here, which came to an overall cost and lead time reduction of 90%. And this is something that we just simply couldn't have done without the larger tip diameter for the T40 tip. And then on the bottom, the same story is true. So we have a large tool, and this one we had to section into multiple pieces, actually 5. And again, we were still able to cut down the cost and lead time by using the new T40 tip and then the Extend 500 box for the machine fixtures. So over 75% cost reduction, and again, it just kind of shows the power of these two new material upgrades. So if there's anything that you need to do that has large jigs, fixtures, layup tools, composite tools, I highly, highly recommend upgrading your printer, the Fortis 900, to both the new tip and the new material canisters. I've used them for since they were in beta testing, and I can assure you that they're well worth the upgrades. So before we open it up to questions, I have a few frequently asked questions, and I'll just go through them one by one, and then we'll open it up there. So the first question is, do I need a special software or hardware upgrade to use the T40 tip on my 900? And the answer is, you will need to make sure that you have the latest controller, version 3.19, and you'll need to make sure that you're running Insight software version 10.8. Next question is, can I purchase the T40 tip without buying one of the kits? And the answer is absolutely you can. It is a standalone item, so if you just need more tips, you can certainly do it that way. The bundles that I talked about towards the end of the presentation were meant to provide additional value. So if you anticipate printing large parts or you have a big order coming in, it makes a little bit more financial sense to buy the bundles so that you make sure you have the tips and the material and you don't want to run out of either in the middle of the process. Is T40A available on other systems, or will it be? And the answer is no. At this time, it's only available on the Fortis 900, and the thought behind that is that the T40 tip is meant for printing large parts quickly, and so the build volume of a 900 is perfectly suited for that because it's a large build envelope, whereas the Fortis 450 or any of the smaller printers, the build volume just isn't large enough to really justify it. Now, I can't speak for certainty, but right now we only offer it on the Fortis 900. Do I need to have the Fortis Plus upgrade to use the T40 tip? And the answer is no. So you can run the T40 tip by just installing it in your printer like a normal tip, but you will need the Fortis Plus upgrade if you want to run the Extend 500 box. And this is included at no cost if you purchase one of the ASA packages that I mentioned earlier. And the reason for that is it comes with a new chip and it comes with new drive blocks, and so you want to make sure you have those upgraded before you start running the new boxes. Why is T40A tip being offered in kits? And again, it's just meant to provide additional value for the customer. We really don't want you to print a large part and run out of tips or material, so it's just a way to reduce costs by buying in bulk. And finally, what other materials can run using the T40 tip? And the answer is right now it's only ASA and Ultim 1010. And again, this is because we feel like it will cover the broadest range of applications, so jigs and fixtures on one side, and then composite tools and high-end aerospace parts on the other. That being said, I'm in the engineering group, so if you have any questions or comments or any new ideas for material that you think would really be impactful if we could extrude with the larger tip diameter, absolutely let us know. That's how Ultim came about, and we're always open to new ideas. So we really do take these things into consideration, but for right now it's just ASA and Ultim 1010. So that kind of concludes everything I wanted to talk about. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer anything and everything you got. So with that, I'll hand it back over, and thank you.
Thank you, David. So if there are any questions which have not been covered now in this Q&A list, which David has just read through, went through, please use this raise hand function, or you can just type it in also, and I will read it aloud for you, and the entire audience can profit of the questions and the answers we get on it. At the moment I don't see any questions. No, so look like, there is one, sorry, from Itziar. Welcome, Itziar. Can the Extend Ultim 1010 canister be used with the T20?
So the Extend 500 canister, the Extend 500 box, is
without?
not supported with Ultem right now. But you can use the larger capacity canisters for T20, any tip size will work.
So she has just added an update to it. So can it be used without any issues?
Yeah, so you mean like if you wanted to print T20 tip with an ASA Extend 500 box, you can absolutely do that. There's no reason why you couldn't. It's just a larger capacity material canister and that's it.
Okay, thank you. Are there more questions? So I would suggest also if there aren't at the moment questions, but maybe later on you can either contact your known channel training team in EMEA or also David as he suggested, and then I would say that we end now the webinar, but before ending it I would like to ask you to fill out the very small feedback form which you will receive right after this webinar. There are only 5 questions and we are very grateful if you are answering them as it will help us improve our webinars and trainings every time. So with that have said, I would like to thank again David and wish you all a very good day ahead or end of the working day, whatever time it is now in your region. Thank you, David.
Thank you, everyone. Appreciate it.
Thank you. We will end the webinar. Have a good day. Bye.